On my birthday, my parents gave my brother a brand new car and forgot it was my birthday. Even the cake had his name on it. That night, I left home with $60 and a backpack. 2 weeks later, my dad called me crying, "Please, just come home." Hey Reddit, my name is Emma Sullivan. I'm 18 years old. And on my 18th birthday, my parents gave my younger brother the biggest gift our family had ever purchased, a brand new car. They parked it in the driveway with a giant red bow. Neighbors came outside to watch. Phones recorded the moment. Dad tossed my brother the keys while everyone cheered. Mom cried. My brother hugged both of them. Then they all walked inside for birthday cake. The cake had one name written across the top. Congratulations, Tyler. It took nearly 30 seconds before anyone realized it was supposed to be my birthday. I laughed, not because anything was funny, because if I laughed first, maybe nobody would notice how badly it hurt. That night, I packed one hoodie, a backpack, $63, and some loose change. Then I quietly walked out the front door. 2 weeks later, my father called me crying so hard I could barely understand him. "Emma, please, just come home." Looking back, I don't think my parents ever intended to become the kind of people who forgot one child while celebrating another. It happened slowly, one small decision at a time. Tyler was born when I was 6. He was energetic, funny, fearless, the kind of little boy who could make strangers smile. I loved him from the moment Mom brought him home. I'd help feed him, read bedtime stories, push his stroller through the neighborhood. Whenever someone asked if he was annoying, I'd proudly answer, "He's my little brother." The favoritism didn't begin immediately. It crept into our lives so quietly that I barely noticed. When Tyler scored his first soccer goal, the whole family went out for dinner. When I made the honor roll, Dad smiled and said, "Good job," then asked Tyler how practice went. When Tyler won a middle school science fair, Mom filled the living room with balloons. When I received a statewide academic scholarship, she told me she'd congratulate me properly after Tyler's baseball tournament. She forgot. I didn't remind her, because reminding people to celebrate never feels like a real celebration. By high school, the pattern had become impossible to ignore. Every family vacation revolved around Tyler's sports schedule. Every weekend became another tournament, another award ceremony, another reason he deserved attention. I didn't resent him. None of it was his fault. In fact, he often apologized. "I'm sorry they missed your debate competition. It's okay. They should have been there." I know. He looked guilty every time, which somehow made me feel even worse. I learned to celebrate my own victories quietly. When I got my first part-time job at a neighborhood bookstore, nobody came to see me on my first day. When I saved enough money to buy my own laptop, Dad simply nodded. "That's responsible." I smiled. It was enough. Or at least, I kept telling myself it was. My 18th birthday fell on the same weekend Tyler passed his driver's license test. He'd failed the first attempt because he'd panicked during parallel parking. The second time, he passed. He was thrilled. Honestly, so was I. The week before my birthday, Mom asked, "What kind of cake would you like?" I smiled. "Chocolate? Still your favorite? Always?" She wrote something on a grocery list. At least, I thought she did. Birthday morning arrived. No presents waited on the kitchen table. No balloons. No birthday card. I wasn't offended. Dad left early. Mom seemed unusually distracted. I assumed they were planning something for dinner. Around 5 that evening, Dad called, "Come outside." When I stepped onto the front porch, the driveway was filled with relatives, aunts, uncles, grandparents, neighbors. Then I saw it, a brand new blue SUV. A massive red ribbon stretched across the hood. Tyler looked completely shocked. Dad smiled proudly. "Congratulations, son. You earned it." Everyone applauded. Tyler looked overwhelmed. "You guys, you didn't have to." Mom hugged him tightly. "We're so proud of you." I stood quietly near the porch steps, watching, smiling, clapping with everyone else. Nobody noticed I hadn't moved. About 15 minutes later, everyone went inside. The dining room table looked beautiful. Decorations, candles, presents. Then Mom carried out the cake. Chocolate, exactly the kind I'd asked for. For one hopeful second, I thought maybe they'd planned both celebrations together. Then I saw the writing. "Congratulations, Tyler, for passing your driver's test." Everyone began singing. Not happy birthday, just cheering for Tyler. Halfway through the applause, my grandmother looked around the room, then frowned. "Wait, isn't today Emma's birthday?" Silence, complete silence. Mom looked at the cake, then at me. Her face lost all color. Oh no," Dad whispered. "I forgot." Tyler immediately looked horrified. No, today is Emma's birthday." Mom covered her mouth. I ordered the wrong cake. She looked at me desperately. Honey, I can fix this. I laughed. It's okay. It really is. Dad walked toward me. We'll order another cake. I shook my head. You don't have to. Tyler stepped forward holding the car keys. Emma, I'm so sorry. I smiled at him. It isn't your fault. And it wasn't. He hadn't asked anyone to forget me. The room stayed painfully quiet. Everyone avoided my eyes. Grandma quietly reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I nodded. It's all right. Then I helped serve slices of Tyler's cake, made coffee for everyone, washed dishes after dinner. Exactly like always. Around 11 o'clock, the house finally became quiet. I walked upstairs, opened my closet, packed one hoodie, a backpack, the $63 I'd saved from working at the bookstore, my toothbrush, 2 changes of clothes. Before leaving, I wrote one sentence on a piece of notebook paper. I hope someday you notice I'm gone. I placed it on my pillow, looked around my room one last time, then quietly walked out the front door. The last bus leaving town pulled away at 11:45 p.m. I climbed aboard, sat beside the window, and watched my hometown disappear into the darkness. Sometimes, people don't realize what they've lost until the silence becomes impossible to ignore. As the bus pulled away from the station, I wasn't running toward something. I was simply leaving the place where I had slowly disappeared. The bus arrived in the next city just after 2 in the morning. I had $63, a backpack, and absolutely no plan. The bus station stayed open all night. I sat in one of the plastic chairs until sunrise, trying to decide what came next. Around 7 o'clock, I walked to the bookstore where I'd interviewed for a seasonal job a month earlier. The manager, Mrs. Harper, recognized me immediately. Emma, I know this is a strange question, but are you still hiring? She looked at the backpack on my shoulder, then at my tired face. Without asking anything else, she simply said, "Come inside." That job saved my life. Mrs. Harper helped me find a small room to rent, above a retired couple's garage. It wasn't luxurious, but it was warm, safe, affordable. During the day, I worked at the bookstore. At night, I completed online college applications, using the store's Wi-Fi after closing. Mrs. Harper quietly wrote one of the strongest recommendation letters I've ever received. 6 months later, I earned a scholarship to a nearby university. The bookstore became a part-time job. College became my full-time focus. For the first time in my life, every success belonged entirely to me. Meanwhile, not one message came from home. At least, not at first. I assumed they hadn't noticed. Then, 13 days after I left, my phone rang. Dad, I stared at the screen. It rang again, and again. Finally, I answered. Before I could say a word, I heard him crying. Not sniffling, actually crying. Emma, please, just come home. I closed my eyes. What happened? His voice shook. We found your note. I frowned. It took 2 weeks. Silence. Then he whispered. Yes? I couldn't understand. My room was upstairs. I know. My note was on my pillow. I know. So how did it take 14 days? Dad took a long breath. The morning after your birthday. We thought you'd gone to work early. The next day, your mother thought you were staying with a friend. And after that, we kept assuming you'd come back. My heart broke. They hadn't even checked my room. Not once. Then Dad continued. Yesterday, your grandmother asked how you were doing. We realized no one had actually spoken to you. Mom finally went upstairs. She found the note exactly where I'd left it, untouched. Dad's voice cracked again. Emma, I've never hated myself more. I didn't know what to say. Then he whispered something that completely changed the conversation. Tyler won't drive the car. What? He parked it in the garage. He said he doesn't deserve it. I swallowed hard. He keeps saying, if my birthday cost me my sister, I don't want the present. Tears filled my eyes. It wasn't his fault. I know now. Dad continued crying. I failed you. I spent 18 years assuming you'd always understand. I never realized understanding isn't the same thing as feeling loved. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Finally, he quietly asked, where are you? I'm safe. Can I come see you? I looked around the tiny room I was renting. I don't think I'm ready. He accepted that. I understand. I'll wait. Before hanging up, he said one last thing. Your mother hasn't stopped crying since she found your note. Weeks passed, then months. Dad respected my decision. He never appeared unexpectedly. Never pressured me. Instead, every Sunday evening, he sent one text. I hope you're safe. I love you. Nothing more. I didn't always answer, but I read everyone. About a year later, I invited him to meet me for coffee. He looked older, tired. The first thing he did was apologize. Not with excuses, not with explanations, Just an apology. I forgot your birthday. I know. I forgot you needed us. I know. I can't change that. No, you can't. Then he handed me a small box. Inside was a birthday card. 18 candles were drawn across the front. Inside he had written, "This is 1 year late, but my love for you isn't. I'm sorry it took losing you to finally see you." I cried, so did he. Several months later, I agreed to visit home. Tyler met me at the front door. Before I could speak, he hugged me so tightly, I almost couldn't breathe. "I'm sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. I should have noticed. You were 16. I still should have noticed." He walked into the garage. The blue SUV was still there, covered in dust. I never drove it. I stared at him. Why? Because every time I looked at it, I remembered your face when everyone forgot your birthday. A week later, he sold it, used the money to help pay for college. "It should have always been about earning things," he said. I couldn't have been prouder of him. Epilogue: soft piano becomes lighter, carrying healing instead of heartbreak. It's been 10 years since that birthday. I'm now an elementary school teacher. Every year, I make sure every child's birthday is celebrated. No exceptions, even if it means bringing cupcakes myself. Because I know how it feels to believe everyone forgot. My parents and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. Not because time erased what happened, because they spent years proving they had changed. Dad has never missed another birthday. Mom still calls every year at exactly 12 o'clock a.m., just to make sure she's the first person to say, "Happy birthday." Tyler and I remain incredibly close. He often jokes, "I still owe you one birthday." I always laugh. "You've already paid me back." My thoughts. Looking back, leaving home with $63 wasn't the bravest thing I ever did. The bravest thing was believing I deserved to be remembered. Sometimes families don't hurt us because they stop loving us. Sometimes they become so focused on one person that they slowly stop seeing another. That doesn't excuse it, but recognizing the difference made forgiveness possible. The birthday cake wasn't really the reason I left. It was simply the moment I realized I'd been quietly disappearing for years. Ironically, the note I left on my pillow said, "I hope someday you notice I'm gone." It took 2 weeks, but once they finally did, none of us ever forgot each other again.